This is the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. It's Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And we have a very important show for you, for all of you. I mean everybody. And especially, though, if you're an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur, what we're going to do is talk to you about the hardest part of not only entrepreneurship business, but corporate business, but also of life. The most difficult and important part of being an entrepreneur or growing a business or wanting to be an entrepreneur or taking that step or just in life in general. So what we're talking about today is about how you deal with people. You see, the hardest thing about my business is not the business, but dealing with people. And that is one of the toughest parts of it. You know, you grow a business and you find out that you have a bunch of Judases inside your camp, you know,
Right.
a bunch. And I'm the Viet Cong era. Says, you know, we just hired a Viet Cong to help fight for us. And then pretty soon you have treason and treachery and lying and cheating and stealing and all that going on. And that was my business partner. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you know, or it could be, you know, I think one of the biggest lies ever told is, you know, when the couple, the fairy prince meets the fairy princess, they get married and they live happily ever after. Man, there's no such thing in relationships as living happily ever after. You know what I mean? Dealing with people, much less leading people in business or in combat, the hardest thing you can possibly do and possibly your most important skill. So today we have two distinguished guests. One is Jack Wesley Yost, Jr. He's a former captain of the United States Army. Jack directed research and testing and recommended solutions to problems in night vision and electro-optics. He's the author of a very important book. It's called The Memo, How a Classified Military Document That Helped the U.S. Win World War II Can Help You Succeed in Business. And our second guest is Gary Morton. He's a graduate of West Point with honors, served as a tank commander, and after the Army, he joined the medical device manufacturer Stryker, where he co-founded the EMS division. He's the author of Commanding Excellence, Inspiring Purpose, Passion, and Ingenuity Through Leadership That Matters. So welcome to the program, both Jack and Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Robert.
Yes, as well. Thank you, Robert. I'm glad to be here.
You know, I started this saying about how it's difficult to deal with people, and I think one of the challenges. And one of the reasons people stay small in business is they'd rather do it on their own. You know, dealing with people is too damn tough. So they just do it on their own. They're small. They stay small. The only problem with that, as those of you who follow Tom Wheelwright, my advisor on taxes, people who are self-employed pay the highest percentage in taxes. And employees pay the next higher percentage in taxes. So one of the things I had to learn was how to deal with people, especially people who, you know, it's easy to lead a person so-called below you, but how do you deal with accountants and attorneys and all those guys, much less your commanding officer and your intermediate officer in front of you? So that's one of the biggest challenges. And so, Gary, as a graduate of West Point, what class again?
1984.
And how was the training on leadership at the West Point?
You know, the training was outstanding. You learned a ton through the experiences at the academy, but you learned really more from your classmates and from the day-to-day interaction that you had with people than you did necessarily from the leadership training. I mean, the training was good. It was, a matter of fact, from Jack's book, there was things that were taught about this memo that he writes about at the academy of how to do a decision brief and how to properly staff things and whatnot, and it was tremendous. But the practical application of how you lead people, whether it's in a military or a business situation, you still have a ton to learn when you leave the academy.
It never stops.
No, never stops.
Dealing with people never stops.
Well, I thought, Robert, you brought up an interesting question there, because a lot of people, particularly with dealing with individual human beings from a leadership standpoint, some of what the Army taught was it was kind of a spread like butter. Everyone's kind of the same, and here's how you lead them. And what we did in 468, because we had a unique commander, and then as I learned and evolved in the process at Stryker, is everyone's not the same. Everyone's very unique and very individual. And if you can understand that, understand who you're going to bring on your team, one, and then understand their strengths and weaknesses when they're on your team and how they like to be rewarded, how they like to be recognized, and those types of things, then you can do a lot more with what you learned about leadership by applying it very individualized to each person within your organization.
Okay, so Jack, what did you learn as being an Army captain in the Army?
Well, yeah, let me underscore what Gary's saying is that with any team that we have either assigned to us or that we put together, we have to maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses, because, as Gary wisely points out, is that not everybody is not the same. We are accomplishing organizational goals through the active support of other people. That's the only way that managers, owners, business owners, leaders get things done. And Robert, I like something that you pointed out, is that most small business owners, they're under the impression they have to do it all themselves. That I know how to do it, and I know how to do it well, and I get it done. But as you point out in your teaching, your writings, if you do it yourself, that's not scalable. I've got to get things done through other people. I've got to identify, recruit, train, and get people to do things. So one of the great challenges is moving from an individual contributor of the people that do the doing, that do the work, and then move to management, to a leadership position where other people actually do the work of perfection, and we do the work of leading, of managing, of getting things done, of the plan, organize, lead, and control. And this is what real leadership is, especially as you pointed out in your question, Robert, especially with accountants and our boss, people that we can't fire. We can only persuade. We can only inspire. We can lead, but we can't really, command them to do anything. And that's what I like so much about being on with Gary here, is that everybody thinks that the military is easy, that you just issue an order, people snap, salute, click their heels, and instantly do as they're commanded. And, initiation, prompt obedience to orders is something we want people to do, but that's not always the case. It's more of persuasion than it is of command and control.
Very well said. Before we go on, the memo you got me as the title of your book, How the Classified Military Document That Helped the U.S. Win World War II Can Help You Succeed in Business.
Yes,
Tell
sir.
me more about that. What was the memo?
Well, the memo is based on the doctrine, military doctrine, called completed staff work. And I saw it on the internet, a decade ago, so I knew it had to be true. So I did some research and found out that there was such a memo. It was originally published in the Army Navy Journal in the early 1940s, and it was later reprinted, redone by General MacArthur. And it simply says that the memo, based on completed staff work, is where the manager, the boss, the chief, the leader, the commanding officer, makes decisions, and staff work makes recommendations, anticipates what the boss needs, what the commander's intent is, formulates options, does the research, and gives the boss a recommendation, so that all the boss has to do is make a decision, and staff makes recommendations. Now, I teach now at the Catholic University of America, so I can make this real complicated, but it's just that simple. As Gary talked about decision briefs, that's all that this is. And I think that Gary's work and my work, we're trying to bring this to the business world to see this is how to get things done to other people.
I believe you had an example. Was it George W. or something? They just woke him up and he said yes, and that was it.
That's right. Yeah. George Bush the elder. It was sound asleep. I think it was on Air Force One. And John Sununu, I visited his home up in New Hampshire a few years ago, and as he was working on the book, And Governor Sununu, who was chief of staff, tells the story of where rebels are going to overrun the presidential palace in the Philippines. So what Chief of Staff John Sununu did, he gathered all the national security people, went through some research, developed some options, hashed it out, and vigorously debated on what to do, came up with a recommendation, and then woke the president up, says, here's the situation, here's what we recommend, we need your approval. And George Bush, the elder, looked at it, said, yep, looks good to me, thought about it a minute, signed off on the approval, and John Sununu took that action, got it done, and all it was just simply fly some jets over the palace to show support for the president, and that scared off the rebels, but that required a signature from the president. And the amazing thing, though, Robert, is that he developed the options, came up with a recommendation, the president signed off on it, but the president then went back to sleep. He was so confident in his staff that on the recommendation.
I want everybody to hear that part. It's not only confident, he also trusted them.
Exactly. You know, we should all have staff like that, and that's the great thing
let me put it another way. How many of you out there work with or associate with people you don't trust? See, that's one of the most horrifying feelings a person can have. So when we come back, we'll be going more into how do you develop that, how you develop a team, and most importantly, how do you develop that trust where you don't have to micromanage like most small business owners do. And then we come back, I'm going to ask Gary about Task Force 468 because unfortunately I'm a Marine. I never heard of that task force, so you can explain it to me. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show with Robert Kiyosaki.
Do you own an LLC or LP? Are you aware of the new rules? The IRS has mandated new audit rules that require every LLC operating agreement and LP limited partnership agreement be amended. This dramatic requirement has never before been experienced, and changes must be made by December 31st. Corporate Direct, owned by Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton, can guide you through these new rules. Call 800-600-1760. That's 800-600-1760. Or visit corporatedirect.com. Contact Corporate Direct today to stay in IRS compliance.
Log on to richdadradio.com while you listen. Now back to Robert Kiyosaki.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. And today's program is about the toughest part of business, but also of life. You know, I mean, if you're married, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, how do you get your husband or wife to agree with you? And if you have kids, you know that's an impossible task. So it's really about leadership, but interhuman communications, and many of us haven't had the training to know how to do that. So you can listen to the Rich Dad program anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android, and you can hear this program again, and all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them because repetition is how we learn. And if you want to be a great entrepreneur, going from small business to big business, this could be the most important program you listen to, because you can't get big if you can't work with people. It's one of the most important things. So all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. Listen to it again and then share it with friends, family, and business associates. Because dealing with people, I don't think there's any harder task. So quickly, you know, my experience is I had no money, and one way I could get into college, because my poor dad would not pay for my education because I was such a screw up in school. So I was a C- student, and so I just applied to United States Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point, New York, because I really wanted to go to sea and travel the world as a merchant seaman. And my Congressman, Daniel K. Inouye, who just passed away, you know, he sent me a nomination to Naval Academy. And I said, I don't want to go to Naval Academy. So he could not believe I would turn down Naval Academy and go to the Merchant Marine Academy. And it was one of the best decisions of my life, because Kings Pointers are the highest paid they were the highest paid graduates in the world at that time. I graduated in '69, and starting pay for many of my classmates was $150,000 a year, 120 to 150, which is not much money today, but back then, that was a lot of money. And then I gave it up because the Vietnam War was on. I thought it'd be over by then. But I volunteered and joined the U.S. Marine Corps, went to Pensacola, Florida to learn how to fly, went to Camp Pendleton and straight to Vietnam. So I took a huge cut in pay from about $10,000 a month down to $250 a month. It was painful. Yet, it's one of the best decisions of my life. The hard part was coming back to the world, as they say, back in '73, and I couldn't believe what I saw in business. I have never seen so many rats and cockroaches and backstabbers and liars and fornicators. And I was in, holy moly, I fought for you guys? Just give you the freedom of doing this? So I had a tough transition, whereas when I led my crew of 16 men as a helicopter squadron, we got things done. And I'm back in Honolulu working at Xerox Corporation, and nothing gets done. It's a bunch of BS. So it's a tough transition. Gary, you graduated at West Point. Do you ever find anything like that?
Well, Robert, my experience was different. I was lucky. I went from one great organization in the Army to another great organization at Stryker, Stryker, the medical device company. And I interviewed at 14 different companies and looked for the kind of environment that I had in the Army and found it. Both those organizations had an absolute clarity of purpose coming from the top. And both of them had a mission, and it was very clear, and people bought into it. So,
wait. So, Gary, once again, the most important word you just mentioned is the word mission. That's the most important word. That was the first word I learned at the academy, the mission.
Yes.
And then when I went for my MBA, I never heard that word again. And it was really tough for me. I'm going, what are we here for? And they said, to make money. And if you look at what's going on in the world today, greed, incompetence, and power are destroying our world as we know it because we've lost a sense of mission. And mission's a very spiritual word. Would you say that?
Well, it's interesting because this clarity of purpose in these two organizations, one was, the task force, was to win every battle at the National Training Center, and everything flowed around that. At Stryker, the mission itself didn't sound particularly inspirational. It was, we grow at 20% every quarter and every year. But because it was so clear, and there was a backdrop of don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, or you're gone. No questions asked, doesn't matter what level you're at. Lie, cheat, or steal, you're out. But in the backdrop of that 20% requirement caused all these wonderful things to happen in developing medical devices and things that changed the world for our customers and changed the world for patients, and made things just so much better in the medical device arena. So it's interesting that you look at company missions, and a lot of them are inspirational and aspirational, and Stryker's, if you look at it on the surface, was not. Yet it caused all those aspirational things to happen.
Okay. I would call that more a goal, something that's measurable, and to me a mission is philosophical. But anyway, as long as it works, I think what you're saying is the clarity is there, the objective.
Absolute clarity.
So, Jack, what do you have to say about all this as a captain? What was your MOS as a captain? What was your specialty?
Oh no! I was armored cavalry, so I was very, very close to what Gary's talking about from the same discipline. And as an aside, my dad used to teach at Kings Point down in so it's a delightful. It's a big planet, but a delightfully small world. So, and my son's going into Army aviation. He'll be flying helicopters here shortly. So,
it's a great way to live. To me, it was always about the mission of life. What's my purpose?
Exactly.
Exactly. And then to serve. That was that was drummed into my head at Kings Point. And we made a lot of money, which was good. I like
that. Because you had such value in the marketplace, and I think that's probably the key to what you're teaching. And the key to what we're trying to convey here is that we as the leaders, the managers, and the owners of business and key influencers in our society, that we try to train people to have such value in the marketplace that you're worth $150K for an entry level salary, because that's the value that you bring to the marketplace. And that that's not expected, but that's how we get things done. So, but I like the point that you're making is that whenever you move in from the individual contributor to a leadership, management, or owner of a business, and you have to get things done through other people, Immanuel Kant said that no straight line was ever drawn with a crooked timber of the human condition. I mean, people are just a mess. I mean, even the good ones, get sick or have flat tires. When I had a position of responsibility in government, I had 14,000 employees, and one of the things that was not on my job description was going to funerals. When you have that many employees, people die on you. There's just part of a life.
And how important is it to the other employees that you show up at the funeral?
Oh, that is exactly the point. That is the effectiveness of leadership, because it wasn't very efficient. I had to take a whole day to do this. But you're right. You're absolutely right. That's being effective, because other people see that you care and that this is important and that people are important. So they can do the work, because their job, the individual contributor's job, and my managers that are in the hierarchy, their job is to get things done. And my job, is in that case, was actually acting as a figurehead to inspire them for them to do the hard work.
So, Gary, that's crucial. It's those little things that make the big difference. But I'm sure both of you, I'll speak to Gary first, I've seen some of the worst leaders in my life not inside my company, but inside my business. And I can't believe these guys. They sit on a board, they're corporate, they do corporate speak. And I look at them and say, you're the phoniest SOBs I've ever seen in my life. I mean, how do you deal with those guys?
That's a great question. And one, you get frustrated. You can't understand why people get into positions like that. But I think if within the overall envelope or the environment of the organization, if there is a clear results orientation, then those people that really can't lead or lead poorly over the long run will get weeded out.
Yeah, my question is, how do you deal with them? Because in my, I just turned 70. In my life, I've had to deal with some I have words for them. I just don't know how they survive. I mean, they're just horrible, horrible people, but they're in positions of authority, which spread the same stuff throughout the organization.
That manager, that leader, is an amateur. We'll give him the benefit of that doubt. But as Gary was getting to on this, is that sometimes if you're in a reporting relationship where that is my boss, we have to go less from the military model back over to the rich dad model, which is that you have to have performing assets to where you can walk away from any organization, from any boss, any relationship, any vendor who you can't do business with. So what I tell my students and my clients is that you have to have a point where you can finance your integrity, because if you're shackled to a horrible boss like that with golden handcuffs, then we've got some real challenges.
I want everybody to listen to what Jack just said. You say, if you're trapped, if you're shackled like a slave, and Lincoln hasn't arrived yet, and you're putting up with all this harassment and pressure and meanness and sarcasm, the only reason you're there is because you need the money.
Right.
And that's
right.
And so what you just said is profound, is that at one point you got to say, look, I put myself here. I'm trapped here. Nobody is trapping me here. And the classic thing in, I used to teach negotiations, is the last thing you get. I don't recommend it, but it's called a walkout. You say, okay, I've done my best, I presented my case. I'm out of here. Thank you. The reason most people don't walk is because they can't afford to walk. What do you say about that, Gary?
They've got to get themselves into position that they can afford to walk. And even if they don't think they're there, they actually may be.
Oh,
because if
horrible.
they get into another situation that is engaging for them, it'll work out for them in the long run.
Our two guests today are John Wesley Oates. He's the author of The Memo, very important book on how the classified military document that helped the U.S. win World War II can help you succeed in business. And Gary Morton, West Point graduate. He's the author of Commanding Excellence, Inspiring Purpose, Passion, Integrity, and Ingenuity through Leadership That Matters. For all of you who are entrepreneurs, or if you're just married with kids, I would definitely get both books, because what they're talking about is essential to success, because the key to success is how you deal with other people. When we come back, we'll find out how you can, what other things they can teach, both men can teach you about how to deal with the toughest part of a business and life, other people.
You're listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show with Robert Kiyosaki.
Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Advisors have a great gift for you. Visit richdadadvisors.com and receive 5 free reports on business and investing success. 5 free reports that can help you right now. And while there, check out the Author's Choice audio series. Audio is a great way to learn. And for as little as 99 cents, you can download key chapters from all the Rich Dad Advisor books. You can listen to The Myths and Magic of Real Estate Investing, 7 Steps to Limited Liability, The 4 Pillars of Investing, Team Code of Honor, or The Psychology of Debt, among other great audios. For pennies, you can power up your skills for getting out of the rat race. So please visit richdadadvisors.com for your 5 free reports and your powerful and affordable audio chapters. That's richdadadvisors.com for great information that can help you right now.
This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And today we're talking about the hardest part of business and in life. How do you deal with other people? Once again, you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio Show anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android. And all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them because repetition is how we learn. And if you listen to this program again, you'll pick up a few more points, but also you can share this program with friends, family, and business people. So again, the hardest part about business or life is dealing with other people. And one of the advantages I had, I believe, was that I didn't go to a regular school, because I couldn't get into the University of Hawaii. You can imagine that one, because my grades were so bad. But anyway, I got accepted to a Naval Academy and the Merchant Marine Academy, and I went to military school. And the first word drummed into your head is mission. What is your mission? They talk about courage, duty, honor, code, integrity, respect. And then from there, after 4 years, I went to the U.S. Marine Corps. Same words, same thing. But I think there was one thing very different about Kings Point versus the Marine Corps, was when we got into a war situation, a combat situation, even though we had petty differences, we functioned as a team. I may not like the pilot and the other plane and all this pettiness, but we functioned as a team. And I don't see that happening too often today. So sometimes it takes something dangerous, a disaster. And I think one of the reasons we have problems is because people are just kind of bored, so they just create problems. They say, well, let me see what I can do. Maybe I can steal something here, or maybe I can spread a rumor here, or go on the web and do silly things and create fake news. And I think they're just bored. So anyway, I have found that I'm looking for people on especially my Rich Dad Advisor team and the Rich Dad Company. They respond. We're always, I would say, in a wartime footing. I don't mean that we're killing people. I mean we're always on the edge performing, and we need each other. We cannot operate alone. So our guests today are Jack Wesley Yost Jr. He's the president of management training of DC. He's a former Army captain, and he's the author of The Memo, very important book, how the classified military document that helped the U.S. win World War II can help you succeed in business. His website is yoast.com, yoest.com. And our other guest is Gary Morton, graduate of West Point with honors, served as a tank commander as part of the Army's incredible Task Force 468. And then he worked with Stryker, a medical device organization, I believe. And he's the author of Commanding Excellence, Inspiring Purpose, Passion, and Ingenuity Through Leadership That Matters. And I cannot think of, if you're going to be in business just surviving in life with your kids and your husband or wife, that's an important skills to have. And Gary's website is igarymorton.com. So gentlemen, any comments on, people who want to be better leaders? What are some, for me, the whole thing was I had to have a team that performed. And so we would set up things. I would practice in Vietnam and before I went to Vietnam with my team. I had a team of 2 pilots, 2 gunners, and 1 crew chief. And we functioned as a team. And we did some really, really dangerous things to build the pressure inside our aircraft so we could get through it and survive. And when we had danger in there, it really made us closer. That was kind of my secret to success. And I think that's why I'm a pretty good entrepreneur and I don't do well in corporate, because none in the Rich Dad company is getting rich here. I mean, we make a lot of money, but they're always under pressure to perform, and that's the way we like it. Any comments there, Jack?
Yeah, what I like first is you said it best, is that a trauma, a work, a sense of urgency, and when I'm looking to hire people, or wife, Charmaine, she's always looking to hire people. The first thing we look for is that who wants the job, like who has the desire, who wants the job, and then you have to persuade me what the job. But what I'm looking for is a problem that you faced, a solution you came up with, and what were the measurable results. I'm looking for a track record of success. First, I'm looking for integrity first. I'm looking for character integrity, and I can get that through references of people that you worked for before. But I'm looking for pain. I'm looking for somebody that's gone through a trauma, somebody that has to work through something hard to do. And that's why I have a bias. Lord forgive me, I have a bias towards anybody that's been through the military or collegiate sports or gone through the discipline of the measurable performance, like musicians and performers or athletes, actors, account managers that have to sell something where there's a number based on your performance. And if you've gone through that trauma and that sense of urgency of coming up with identifying a problem, a solution that solved the problem, and a measurable result, if you've done it in your past organization or in a past position, there's a good likelihood that you're going to continue that same performance working for working for me or one of my clients.
So Gary, how do you handle it? What do you look for in a person to be an employee or a partner or spouse, whatever it is?
Yeah, I think Jack's thoughts are great ones, and you figure out what works for you and what works for that organization. But interesting for your viewers, I think there's a story that I'll relate here. But we had all these different divisions. It was a decentralized company at Stryker, and we had a 20% growth requirement. So the company's doubling in size every 3.7 years. And your headcount adds were crucial because there was a lot of pressure to not add more headcount than what you needed. So that led to an intense focus on making the selection process as good as it possibly could be. And one division struck gold. They figured out how to get really powerful, statistically validated psychological profiles so they could hire. At first it was salespeople, and then it spread to all the other specialties within the division. But they could hire people who were congruent, who would fit into our organization, whose psychological makeup was kind of congruent with the top performers in that particular part of the organization. And it was a force multiplier. It really made a tremendous impact on the company when we got so much better at hiring over the years as a result of refining and utilizing these profiles and really understanding the individuals that we were going to hire.
Right. See, Gary, that's fine for big corporations in the U.S. Army. But most of our listeners, they're mom and pops and all this. How are they going to do that?
Yeah, so tools are out there. Tools are out there on the internet. Tools are out there. It doesn't. We used Gallup. It's only $100 to hire Gallup to do a hiring profile on a prospective candidate. And
is that Gallup polls?
It's the same people that do the polls, but
Okay.
they have another subset of their organization that's a bunch of strengths-based clinical psychologists, if you will, and they can get you a pretty good understanding of somebody's psychological makeup based on working with you for a period of time.
That's great news.
For not a whole lot of money, and if you're not using something like that, you are kind of shooting in the dark, because it really made a profound difference. And even for a small company, for the small companies, each hire is so crucial that you got to spend that money, spend that time, and get the investment, and to get the right people on your bus. There's no more important decision that you make than to put the
Amen, amen, amen. But let me ask you this, okay, both of you. So let's say you're mom and pop. You guys are at break even. I mean, you're basically surviving. And this is where I think my military training came in, is because on all of my works, people will always say, I can't afford it. And to me, those are the words of death. When you say you can't afford it, you shouldn't be in business, because then you can't grow personally, you can't expand into it. So with the benefit I have in my marriage with my wife, Kim, we forbid ourselves and can't afford it, and we just go after what we want. And I would say that comes from years and years, 4 years of academy and 6 years in the Marine Corps, is we don't let reality get in our way. I don't look at my paycheck, and the paycheck doesn't determine my life. Yet, as we talked about earlier, for many people, their paycheck is their life. It determines the boundaries of their life. Or if you're self-employed, a small business, you get all these problems, and you always say, well, I can't afford it, so you stay small. So what did you guys learn in the military that'll get you beyond those, what you call it, self-limiting thoughts or beliefs?
Well, Robert, I like the direction you're going on this, is because one of the things that I learned the hard way is that the worst mistake that a manager can make on the civilian side is to make a bad hire. So Gary's on the right track here, is that we have to do a better job on the selection process to do that. And one of the things that I insist in teaching here at the Catholic University of America is to train my students to always come up with the answer to the question, which you always ask here, Robert, is why do you want the job? Why do you want to be here? Why do you want to do
Jack, that's not the question I'm asking you. How do you get beyond yourself? You see, that was the biggest thing I got. You're talking about hiring people and all this stuff. To me, that's, I hate to say this, that's corporate talk. How do you get somebody from mom and pop outside of being mom and pop, or somebody who's clinging to a job right now outside of their own self-limiting beliefs? How do you do that? What did the military teach you?
The first thing that I learned as an Army officer is that as much as I love the work and I love the doing, is that I can't do it all. I can't do all this work. I have to move from doing the hands-on stuff with the machinery, with tank gunnery, with mortars. I have to move from that, and I have to train and trust and work with other people to do this. Now, Rumsfeld got in a lot of trouble saying that you have to go to war with the Army that you have, and sometimes I didn't have quite the talent on the team that I would like to have had, but it's my job to get them ready. But as a young officer, one of the things that we were groomed to do is to move from the doing the work to the supervising the work, to running the work. And for me, that was one of the most difficult transitions of knowing that, of moving from being very efficient on the job to being more effective on the job. And that was a big transition for me. And the civilian application is that, the old cliche that if you want something done right, you do it yourself. Well, in the Army, I learned that no, I can't. If I'm doing it myself, I'm doing somebody else's job. I'm doing my job, which I'm supposed to be doing in supervision, but I'm doing somebody else's job as an individual contributor.
See, the way I look at it, that's not my job, is to do the work. See, my job is to get somebody else to do the work. That's how I look at it.
Exactly.
And that's what we're getting at here. How do you get somebody who might, have a 9-to-5 mentality, or they're sitting at home eating bonbons, and you come home and they say, "Oh, what you've been doing all day? Oh, nothing." How do you deal with that? Do you know what I mean?
Oh no, exactly.
That's to me is where the rubber meets the road. It's nice to have a multi-million-dollar budget. You can hire people, but I have a friend who went home, and he finds out his wife is having sex with somebody else.
No, geez.
What do you say? You know what I mean? How do you rise above? And I mean, those are everyday problems.
Those are certainly difficult situations. I guess get back to your original question, though. One of my sons-in-laws started a brewery here recently. And he started with himself and a partner, and they ran across all kinds of obstacles in the process of getting this thing up and rolling. And it was, at points they were not sure they could do it. And I think that, getting back to the military situation, I walked into an armor battalion whose commander was relieved because they were incompetent. And a year later, we go out and do something that no other unit in the world had ever done. No other unit in the United States Army had ever done, and won every single battle at the National Training Center. And what was different was the mentality. There is no win situation. There are always alternatives. Keep moving forward no matter what. And that's what my son-in-law did. I mean, he had all kinds of regulatory issues, couldn't get the liquor license, all kinds. But he and his partner, they just kept moving forward.
Amen.
They kept their confidence. They're going to keep going at it, and they launched this brewery, and it's been a tremendous success. So
I want to thank you guys for your time, because we're out of time. But really, that's what it comes down to, in my opinion. That was the most important thing I learned at the academy and then in the Marine Corps. I hate to use that as a cliche. There are no limits, or belief in limits creates limited people. But it kind of drives me crazy when I limit myself. I mean, it's a personal thing. When I say I can't do something, or I don't want to exercise today, or it's too tough, then I really shouldn't be in my business. So anyway, I want to thank both of you guys for your time. And once again, Jack Wesley Yost, his book is The Memo, How the Classified Military Document That Helped the U.S. Win World War II Can Help You Succeed in Business. And Gary Morton, graduate of West Point with honors. And his book is Commanding Excellence, Inspiring Purpose, Passion, and Ingenuity Through Leadership That Matters. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks for your insight. And when we come back, we're going to ask Robert.
You're listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show with Robert Kiyosaki.
Do you own an LLC or LP? Are you aware of the new rules? The IRS has mandated new audit rules that require every LLC operating agreement and LP limited partnership agreement be amended. This dramatic requirement has never before been experienced, and changes must be made by December 31st. Corporate Direct, owned by Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton, can guide you through these new rules. Call 800-600-1760. That's 800-600-1760. Or visit corporatedirect.com. Contact Corporate Direct today to stay in IRS compliance.
Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Advisors have a great gift for you. Visit richdadadvisors.com and receive 5 free reports on business and investing success. 5 free reports that can help you right now. And while there, check out the Author's Choice audio series. Audio is a great way to learn. And for as little as 99 cents, you can download key chapters from all the Rich Dad Advisor books. You can listen to The Myths and Magic of Real Estate Investing, 7 Steps to Limited Liability, The 4 Pillars of Investing, Team Code of Honor, or The Psychology of Debt, among other great audios. For pennies, you can power up your skills for getting out of the rat race. So please visit richdadadvisors.com for your 5 free reports and your powerful and affordable audio chapters. That's richdadadvisors.com for great information that can help you right now.
Financial freedom begins with financial education. Now back to Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Radio Show.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And I want to thank Jack Wesley Yost Jr. He's the author of The Memo, How the Classified Military Document That Help the U.S. Win World War II Can Help You Succeed in Business. And Gary Morton, graduate from West Point with honors. His book is Commanding Excellence, Inspiring Purpose, Passion, and Ingenuity Through Leadership That Matters. His website is igarymorton.com, and Jack's is yoast.com, yoest.com. It's interesting that his father was an instructor at Kings Point, and his son's going to be a helicopter pilot. But anyway, you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes and Android, and all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them so you can listen to the program again, because repetition is how we learn. So you can submit your questions to Ask Robert at richdadradio.com. And so, Melissa, what's the first question?
Our first question today, Robert, comes from Henry in Denver, Colorado. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. As an entrepreneur in a growing business, I struggle with delegation. I know I need to, but I'm having a hard time letting go of the day-to-day. Any advice? How did you and Kim do it?
Well, I don't know. Everybody's going to do it differently, and I think that there's a saying that goes, to thine self be true. Because every day in business to me is a war, because I'm going into not so much battle, but I'm going out there to get money or get somebody to do something or convince somebody to work with us. It's every single day. And what we always recommend was join a network marketing company so you can learn to deal with people. I mean, if you don't want to do that, you may want to reconsider what you do and just stay small. There's nothing wrong with being small. But one of the greatest lessons I learned was flying over the battlefield in my helicopter, and we knew we were losing the war. The NVA was rolling south. It went past the DMZ, the militarized zone, and we knew we were losing, and we knew it was over. We couldn't win. So I'm flying over this thing, flying my gun missions in and out. Guys are trying to kill me. I'm trying to kill them. But I noticed something different, So I went back to the ship. I flew off in the aircraft carrier, and that night during the debrief, which is important part of flying, the debrief, I asked this question. I said, how come their Vietnamese fight harder than our Vietnamese? That was the question. And then I realized the Viet Cong were fighting with spirit, with passion. They wanted to kick our butt. It's the same way that Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these guys want to kick our fat butts. And that's when I learned one of the most important lessons. I want people with that much spirit around me. Unfortunately, talk is cheap, and I partnered with people who are all talk and knives in their back. From the Bible, there was always some Judas or Brutus or whatever. They want to stab you in the back. And that's part of business. So the hardest part for me was to find people with that spirit who wanted to win. But the question is, do you have that spirit? See, if you don't have it and you're just there paying lip service, we're all going to be a little happy company. We're all going to get trophies. We're all going to win. And, this is job security. I'm going to take care of you for life. And, I said, hey, people aren't stupid these days. I mean, they never were stupid. But today people are looking for purpose, meaning, and mission in life. So the question is, how strong is your mission? Is it just for you to make some money? Then that's not very inspiring. So all leadership begins with you. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Brinley in Nashville, Tennessee. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Does the Rich Dad Company have a mission statement? If so, how was it created and how do you implement it within your business?
Very bad subject there, because the Rich Dad Company was started with a mission. And as unfortunately, we had some people seep into the organization that forgot we had a mission, and we never have the mission posted anywhere. So the mission started with to elevate the financial well-being of humanity. The mission of the Rich Dad Company is to elevate the financial well-being of humanity. But unfortunately, dealing with other people who don't believe in mission but believe in money, it's not posted anywhere. So I got to keep going around and saying, be a pest. Say, where is the mission statement? Where is the mission statement? And I hate to say this, I would say 80% of most people have no mission in life but to have a good time. That's it. They really don't go any further than that. They want to survive. They want to have the house in the suburbs, a station wagon, a SUV, and 3 kids, get them through college. That's their mission. It's called survival. And that's why we had these gentlemen, John Wesley Yost and Gary Morton is the reason the military was such a great training grounds for us. It put it into our hearts. And the word is called mission, duty, honor, code, respect, courage. And those things all of us have, but few of us need. And I think that's the problem. So the question for everybody is, what is your mission? What are you willing to give your life for? If you don't have that, then stop lying to us, go to the bar, order some chicken wings, have some beer, and eat celery sticks, and watch the game on TV. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Linda in Phoenix, Arizona. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What skills do you look for or think are the most important when you're considering your team?
I can't just give you answers. I think that's one of the saddest things. Look, the only way you're going to find out is like asking yourself this question. Okay, let's say you want to get married. Well, how do you find the perfect husband or wife? Well, there's only one way. You have to go, unless your mother's going to choose them for you. But you go out there, you kiss a lot of frogs, you may get married once or twice, and then you get scarred. I'll never trust that SOB again and all that. Well, then you're scarred. That's pain. Let go of the pain and then go find another person. But life isn't about, the fairy prince or fairy princess and they lived happily ever after again. And the same is especially true with business and money. Today we have too many people with the entitlement mentality where everybody gets a trophy. And that's why this country is going downhill. And like I talked about Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and these guys, they want to kick our butts. They hate us. They hate us. Why? I'll never know. But I tell you what, when I was in Vietnam, I was watching the Viet Cong fight and the NVA, North Vietnamese fight. Those guys fought with passion, and we didn't have it. That's why we lost. It's a very big difference in passion, courage, and fighting. It was really hard the last year there to know that I could die for a lost cause because nobody really wanted to fight because the Vietnam War was an illegal war. It's corrupt. It was a corrupt war. We went there to fight for oil. So I will understand that there's a thing called mission, purpose, courage, honor, integrity, respect. And if you can embody those as you go through life, you have a better chance of success. Or you can be like Bernie Sanders saying, we need to give everybody some money and a free education and free food and free lunch and a free husband and a free wife and free kids, It's your choice. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Caitlin in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Favorite book, Rich Dad Guide to Investing. Robert, I believe in the company I work for, and I'm always learning in my position. My goal is to move full-time to my part-time side business. My challenge is I don't know how much longer I can deal with my direct report manager. Any advice to get through the next few months?
That's a great question. I think that manager that, I'm sure you call him an idiot or her an idiot, is can you get bigger than them? Can you get bigger than them and not so much outsmart them, but don't get sucked into their petty little power positions, games. That's the hardest part. I don't do very well at that. That's why I have CEOs and presidents who are very, very good at that because I am still a Marine. I go and punch them out. But you go to jail for doing that. So that's why your challenge right now is can you get bigger? I don't know how else to say it. Just treat him as a little kid who's having a temper tantrum or as a power game they're playing. If you can't get bigger than that, you shouldn't go to business. So thank you all for your questions. You can submit your questions to AskRobert@richdadradio.com. Again, thanks our guest, Jack Wesley Yost, Jr., author of the memo, How the Classified Military Document That Helped the U.S. Win World War II Can Help You Succeed in Business, and Gary Morton is author of Commanding Excellence, Inspiring Purpose, Passion, and Ingenuity Through Leadership That Matters. Please read that book because they're talking about the hardest thing in life. How do you deal with other people? Thank you for listening.